Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of our school finance class. I hope that you have enjoyed or at least sparked some interest in finance as you've read chapters 1 and 2. I know a couple of you are just now getting that text. The conversation of being equal in funding compared to equity in funding is always an interesting conversation in finance. If we are equal to everyone, sometimes we miss the bar of what students need, and equity brings a different conversation comparing those that say, well, we think it should be this way in equity compared to this. We're going to continue to go that in further this week as you read about adequacy versus equity and really trying to understand in funding for school, what do we think is adequate versus what is equitable? So just a conversation and reading that you'll go through. I also hope in chapter 2 that you caught there's a lot of different assembly bills, laws that have been passed for school funding. It's not that you have to have them all memorized, but just making that connection of your legal courses and understanding they have an influence on funding as well. So what is week 2 going to look like? Week 2 is going to ask you to read from your school finance book, the chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3 is really that conversation about some of the developments that bring up the conversation of equity and equality in schools. You'll get into a component of Lcff, understand other components about population changes. It's interesting. The chapter will bring up that California is a growing state. Current news, again, California is shown a decline in this last census. First time California has ever shown a decline in population in a census that's been taken since censuses have been taken or since I have been taken. So it's going to affect us a little bit differently as we think of funding, whether it comes from the federal government or even looking at our own state and how we're funding for it as well. So just a conversation when you're reading the chapter. Again, it's not reflecting on this year and what that could possibly bring. So that's chapter 3. Chapter 4, you're going to get into the conversation of the chief business officer, assistant superintendent of business services might be another name, assistant soup, of business services, CBO, chief business officer acronym. So you're going to get into that conversation. It's really, for me, it was eye-opening and understanding the work that they do and knowing as an administrator, you need to be able to have that relationship with that individual. I always encourage all of my students, if you can get that chance to interview that person, especially looking at planning a future budget, that's always great. But again, can be pretty busy, but know that's somebody you definitely want to have a relationship with as you become a site principal. So from there, you're going to go into a Western article that is titled, again, Equity to Adequacy. Just brings that conversation of what adequacy really is. Are you funding to make sure that it's a base expectation for everyone? Are you funding to meet different measures? So really this conversation, this article is from 2000, the year 2000, but really leading up to Lcff and those components of it. The next piece that you'll be looking at is the Lcff questions, formula overview, those components. I really want to encourage you to just get a glimpse of this descriptor from the state. This is the state website. It's not hidden information. You can always go to it and it brings up all these pieces. You're going to notice I'm scrolling down, and one of these things is the local control funding formula overview, and that's really going to give you that understanding or descriptor of the base formula, the supplemental formula, and then the concentration grant. So supplemental grant and concentration grant are for districts that meet certain criteria. So that'll be explained there, and that's again in the local control funding formula overview that you'll find on this page. The other component that you will be reading is the local control formula, sort of like an overview from EdSource, always a great resource to give you information about different policies, how they see in funding. Again, please remember to read everything with the fact that certain individuals write it with a certain view, or, and I'm not trying to say EdSource is trying to sway you either way. They try and be as the least opinion as possible when they write, but it'll just give you another component of a view. This was written right in 2016 when Lcff was coming out, so that's that component. And then last but not least, it's a video that you're going to be watching for this week, and it comes from, again, the California School Board Association and the Legislative Analyst's Office, and it's digesting the 2021 state budget. We are currently going through this conversation right now in May revise of what the budget will be approved for 21-22. If you've been following the news this past week, Governor Newsom has been talking about the surplus that California has gained in capital gains tax and a couple other places from some of our pretty wealthy individuals that live within the state. And so this dialogue that you're going to hear about the digesting, they're trying to formulate that all for the 21-22 school year. I am going to put a link in the announcements that's just going to give you, again, going back to EdSource, sort of a quick overview of some things the governor's proposing with those extra funds for education. Great to follow and see how those roll out. And you'll notice, again, they'll talk multiple years for it. So this video, I will forewarn you, is about an hour long. The dialogue is there just so you can try and digest. Don't feel like you have to be the expert, but gives you that information. So those are the components for the reading for this week. Then there is a learning module. Again, you've had those in your other classes. Just continue to cook that play and go through those. This week for the discussion boards, it is 2 discussion boards. I'm not going to open up the discussion board, but I'm just going to mention the 2. Discussion board number 1 for week 2 is about the state's population and the change in our population. You'll be reading, again, like I said, in chapter 3 of the finance text, a little bit about that. So it's a dialogue for you of what you're seeing. Some of it will be your opinion, but you'll want to back your opinion from things that you've read, whether it's from chapter 3 or other experiences you've had from other classes, and talking about the change in population for California and how that might affect financing schools. And then discussion board number 2 for the week is actually going to have you click and look at this Lcff funding component and really trying to understand if there is equity in the formula and how it's implemented. So you'll have a dialogue about that on the discussion board. And I look forward to seeing you guys digest what you think and then giving those responses back to your peers. That reminder, discussion boards are always due by Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. And then your responses to your peers is due by Sunday night. That reminder about your initial response, it should be at a master's level, 250 words. You definitely should be citing sources, and I should see that in your post as well. If those elements aren't there, points are deducted for that. So I just want to make sure we are clear on that. I know number 1 post really wasn't a citing a source, it was your reflection. Then the rest of our discussion boards, you should be citing a source in your initial post. So those are the 2 discussion boards, one on population, one on Lcff conversation. All this Lcff is also prepping you for one of the assignments. Not assignment number 1, but you'll see in assignment number 2, we're getting you ready with the things that you're reading about Lcff and then basic aid funding. Not something specific for this week, but you can see that some of this reading is going to help support you. So if I look at the rest of what's left for the week, it's really more about that planning ahead. Assignment number 1 is your current school site budget presentation, which is due by week 3. So again, not this coming Sunday, but the next Sunday it will be due. If you've not had an interview with an administrator that can help you sort of lay out, hey, what's our budget? What's our challenges to our budget? How are you getting stakeholder voices into the budget? If you haven't had that conversation with an administrator, I highly encourage you to. And again, that's laid out here in the rubric and just telling you what you're working on. But again, your choice of using Google Slides, a Prezi, a PowerPoint, whatever it is, to give a brief 10-minute 10 slides presentation kind of thing, acting as the administrator, presenting to your staff. Again, if you're somebody at one of those unique positions that maybe you're not at a school site right now, think of it that you're either presenting to other fellow principals or to a school board and talking about the current budget that you're dealing with. So that is due again in week 3. You will give me notes in your presentation, and a video recording of it is part of that dialogue as well. So you can see here in the rubric. Then I just want to talk about now, you heard me already talk about the idea of LCFF and basic aid. That'll be coming up in week 4, but I have put up and make sure that you check your group link to connect with your group mates. Groups have been formed. Again, it was a random form, just trying to take our list of rostered students and just putting you together in groups of 3. So there are a total of 4 groups that you will be working together to give a presentation. It's a collaborative topical presentation, and I'm just going to pull up the assignment. Again, it's a 10 to 15 recorded group presentation together. You can choose on the topics here of LCFF equity issues, challenges and opportunities in California, again, specific to school finance and the factors that might influence that, impact of transportation on the district budget, food services and its role within the budget and the district climate. And you have that opportunity. If you're finding something else that you would rather have that dialogue about with your group members that really do have an issue with school finance, thinking of trying to support a new program that you're bringing onto a campus or trying to bring within a district, just let me know. My request is groups will let me know as you put things on your discussion boards for your groups, specific to your groups. Please use those at one of those entries, just letting me know this is what our group is working on, so I can give a reply back to that to let you know if that's a thumbs up, we're good to go, or maybe I have some clarifying questions for you. So if you can get that up by the end of this week with your group, that would be a great thing at the latest in week number 3. Again, this assignment's not due till week number 5, but you definitely want to start connecting with your group members. There are 3 of you in a 10 to 15 slide, 10 to 15 minutes being presented on that specific topic. You'll be able to dialogue about educating. Just think of it, you're educating either a school staff or a board of education, or again, just going to your ed services trying to present this is what we want to learn or educate others on. So that in a nutshell is what the week is, what we're looking ahead to. Just a reminder for anybody who hadn't got their text in week 1, please know that you will have one more discussion board about the reading in chapters 1, specifically one about equality and equity, just bringing those into that conversation. So if you hadn't finished the week prior, it is due by this Sunday night of week 2. I hope that you have a great week. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions by an email, text, or phone call. God bless you.